lines, if you can work on telehealth specifically. And I encourage you to get up to date and current with your own licensing board for your own practice. Also, for the record regarding practice, about 40% of the people I saw signed up today do body work or alternative medicine in some capacity. And about 70%, you notice there's an overlap there, 70% are mental health or wellness providers in a more of a therapeutic concept. So that's interesting. We also have people on the line from Afghanistan, Turkey, the United Kingdom, Ireland, Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina, Singapore, Japan, and Australia. So we're really covering the globe right now. Some people are real weary-eyed, so thanks for being with us. Just so we get a sense of who you are and where you are and get familiar with this platform, I want to encourage you to look probably at the bottom of your screen. You should see a thing that says Q&A. When I refer to the chat, I'm going to be talking about the Q&A. If you would go ahead and click on that Q&A and let us all get a little bit related, why don't you go ahead and open that up and post in there what your name is and where you're currently coming in from. Let's just start to get to see who's online. My guess is some of you have done our training together and you're probably on here with some friends at the moment. So if you just try to sample, explore, check out what our technique for communication will be today, go ahead and open your Q&A and go ahead and type in where you're at. All right, some people are already super getting it. We've got Malka in Brooklyn. We've got Fionn in Ireland. We've got Martha. Oh, wow, it's going up so quick. We've got, I'm seeing Kent, Connecticut. I'm seeing Boston. I'm seeing Denise in San Francisco. Wow, guys, take a look at this list. How fun to be with you all. Yeah, feel free to share whatever you want there. This is just the get to know you first couple of moments of our session. After I explain to you how our technical pieces will go, we'll go ahead and transition over to the format of today's session, which will be, you'll be hearing from two Somatic Experiencing faculty members who lead the trainings around the United States and the world. And as they're speaking and having a conversation with each other, it's kind of like listening into your best professors in the hallway, just hearing what they have to say about this modality. And at the same time, please be starting to think about what questions you might have that could really help you in this time. As you ask certain questions, go ahead and dump that in the Q&A, put them in the Q&A, sorry. And then if you see other people's questions and you enjoy that question, you're interested in that question, please go ahead and upvote it. When we start to see questions upvoted, that's how we'll begin to prioritize which questions we'll take. I may at one point ask you to raise your hand, and by raise your hand, there should be a feature for you to do that on your screens. Oh, maybe not. I'm going to skip that today because I just realized I haven't tested to make sure that that's available for this format. So we'll have you ask questions, we'll upload them. How we want to make this a conversation. If you were with us last week, you already know this. If this is your first time, welcome. To be a conversation, when you post your question, I would love at the end, if you're not willing to have your face appear as a video, please put in parentheses, no video. If your question is selected as one of the more prioritized ones by the community, I'm going to queue you up. I'll let you know, hey, so-and-so, Esther Hallman in Cape Town, South Africa. We'd like to answer your question right now. Are you okay? And I will unmute you and ask if you're okay with us bringing you to video. At that time, you'll say yes or no. If you say yes, then we will bring your video onto the screen and you will be on screen with Glindy and Linda, and you all can chat, discuss, and explore the topic a little bit more. When you're done, we'll send you back to the participants section and we'll move on to another. I'll explain this one more time, a little bit more briefly next time, right before we start that part of today's session, but I just wanted to start getting you familiar with what to look forward to. So if you have any questions for Glindy and Linda as we go, please put those in the Q&A and please upvote others if you're interested. Got it? For the record, you all have chimed in right now. Some of you have been on Zoom meetings and you may be trying to figure out how to unmute yourself or to make your video go live. We are in the webinar format, so that's not possible in this session. We'd have to unmute you and bring your video onto the screen with the rest of us. So if you find that it doesn't feel like other meetings, that might be why. Okay, so that said, one last piece before we get started. we're very happy to be trying to provide as many resources as we can for the COVID-19 response time. We really want to exercise our strength as a nonprofit charitable organization to serve you in the community. And that means moving beyond our traditional format of providing trainings in somatic experiencing. That said, we're working on programs right now for frontline responders. We're working on programs to be able to convert SE into a field protocol for stabilization and safety. We're looking at different quick train the trainers programs we can do and volunteer programming. Those are all some things in the works at the moment. Please, if you appreciate us doing this kind of charitable work, we'd ask you to consider making a donation to Somatic Experiencing Trauma Institute. We normally charge about $50 for a webinar, and this today is free. So if you even just did $10, it would make a difference. One way to do that if you're in the United States is go ahead and open your phone and send a text message to 26989, 26989, and in that message, you would put all in one word, support SE, SUPPORT-SE, no space in between, and you'll get a message back. If you're outside the United States in any of the international locations, please go to traumahealing.org/donate. Thanks so much for being here, guys. With no further ado, I'd like to go ahead and bring my practitioners onto the line. I'm gonna unmute your audio, Linda and Glindy.
Hi there.
And you'll get your video started. And I'm gonna read their bios and then we're gonna dive right in. So, ladies and gentlemen, Linda Stelt is coming in from Victoria, Canada today. She is one of the SE Canadian faculty who has had the opportunity to teach SE in multiple locations around the world, including I know she has a fan club from Ireland on today. We're already getting that, so that's just wonderful. In addition to teaching, for over 15 years, Linda has been part of a multidisciplinary counseling team that supports people in a variety of challenging and crisis situations in a small rural community. Particularly to me as a long-term disaster worker, that really moves my heart. Disaster in rural communities is a completely different animal. So I'm so glad that we have Linda on the line with us today and all the ways she's gonna share her knowledge with us. Thanks for joining us, Linda.
My pleasure.
Hey, Glindy is a faculty member of the Somatic Experiencing Trauma Institute who also teaches in the US and Ireland. So probably that fan club is mutual, just guessing for both of you. So cool. She holds a PhD in clinical psychology and has a bodywork, healing, and yoga teaching background, which might be interesting to some of you if you want to ask some questions about that today. She's worked in community mental health and crisis response in LA and Western Massachusetts, overseas in South India with tsunami victims as well. She's worked with domestic abuse survivors and also with Tibetan ex-political prisoners in Northern India. So a lot of great expertise on the line. To turn it over to you guys, today's session is called Tracking in the Wild, Connecting in Virtual Space. A lot of those words are keywords, buzzwords for SE practitioners, for people who are new. It's not, I just want to kick it off and ask you, tell us a little bit maybe about what that title means to you and go ahead and chat for a little bit. In about 15 minutes, we'll start taking some Q&A.
All right, sounds good. Welcome, everyone. This is really exciting to have the opportunity to be with all of you. And when I imagine all of you in so many different places around the world, it both excites me and really warms my heart. I think, you know, that title that we came up with this week for this webinar, I love the title because I think one of the challenges that we have in this extraordinary time in the world that's impacting all of us is this idea of connection. And we're, you know, many of us were, you know, that's something that we've loved doing in person with people in our personal lives and with people in our professional lives. And most certainly with the people we try and support in our work. And now we're being asked to find ways to connect in this really extraordinary time that might even seem a little wild. there's this extraordinary experience that we're having in the world, and then this experience of knowing how important connection is and how connection is vital to supporting healing, and how connection is not only vital to supporting healing, but supporting our own wellness in our personal lives as well as our professional lives, and then being asked to connect through really different platforms than we're used to connecting. So there's this really interesting piece where I think we're challenged today to both still feel and allow ourselves to feel that impulse of wanting connection, and both being able to feel that impulse of our own desire for connection, but also to support people to be able to feel connection when we're offering it. And it's a little challenging in this offering it over both this virtual platform, but also when we think about it, for many of us, we might have increased activation in our nervous system. We might have a sense of increased survival energy, a sense of the threat response being initiated in our own systems. And one of the things that we know is that when we have increased activation, when we have a sense of threat in our beings, it can be hard to both offer support, but also to notice the signals of people trying to offer us support. Mm-hmm. And how we're, the signals of support that maybe we're used to, maybe, for example, being able to see somebody's face. And now with people wearing masks, we can't see parts of the face. And so we miss some of the signals that might say, I care about you, or I'm enjoying what you're saying. And so in some ways, we are being asked to find new ways to express connection and to hear connection, to hear those efforts of connection at a time when maybe our own threat response is up. And when our threat response is up, just even generally speaking, it's harder to notice those experiences or those signals that say, I care, or that I'm trying to care. So I think one of the important things to come back to with this idea of that even in this extraordinary time, and even over this virtual platform, that we are still wanting to offer connection, that it's completely possible. And sometimes we limit ourselves in thinking that connection isn't possible in these platforms, and yet it is. And it often starts with us as the practitioner being able to connect with ourselves, with that principle of our ability to continue to be in relationship with ourselves and our presence, and a relationship with where we are in this moment. So if you're willing, I'd actually, as we start this a little bit, I'd actually like to invite you to just take a moment and see if we can create a little space to connect with yourself and the environment that you're in right now. And appreciating that we're all in really different environments and different parts of the world. But if you can, to just let yourself get comfortable or a little more comfortable in the chair that you're sitting in. And that might require adjusting yourself a little bit. Maybe you were finding yourself leaning forward into the screen like I was there. But to just let yourself go back into your chair if you can. And to just even notice what happens as you shift your attention to coming back to you. To coming back to noticing your comfort and making any shifts you might need to get comfortable. and watching what happens just as you explore that. Does your breath change? Does your heartbeat change? Or maybe you notice something else change. And then if you're willing and if it's available, to let your attention come out into the space where you're sitting. And maybe visually, to let yourself see where you are. Even though you may be in a room or you may be in a space that you've spent a lot of time in recently. And you may have this thought that I know this room so well. I've been here a lot the last few days or a few weeks. But even with that thought, is it okay to just let your eyes explore? And see if there's something that's maybe on the neutral or maybe even pleasant side that catches your eye or catches your attention. And then to come back and connect. Notice with yourself what happens inside as you let yourself notice where you are. And maybe when you notice what's happening inside now, maybe there's something a little different. Maybe there's a different sensation or a different emotion that shows up. And you might find it helpful to just let your attention move back and forth between the environment that you're in, connecting to the environment that you're in, and then connecting to yourself. That ebb and flow between both.
Mm-hmm. Linda, I'm finding myself as I'm listening to you, just really appreciating your rhythm as it's really bringing me into more contact with myself. I'm just having that experience of getting my attention out towards this lovely plant that I probably underappreciate and feeling deep gratitude for the plant and how that affects my breath.
Mm-hmm.
And I also was noticing your breath when you were doing the exercise. I could see it moving through your shoulders and it looked like your upper back from here. And that was also calming for me to see that. I heard it in your voice that there was a certain calm and in that rhythm, even in the way that your head's moving and nodding. So there's a sense of like a coherent sense of like, oh, she's got this. She's within herself. And how that affects my system over here is it helps me feel more in touch with my own coherence, my own sense of wholeness.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. And then it's kind of neat to think about all of us who are involved in this webinar right now, each having your own experience of doing this. And then to remember that many of us might be impacted by just doing that brief little orientation exercise. And so when we think about that idea of connecting through this extraordinary time and connecting on these different platforms, the webinars and telehealth, exercises like this can be really helpful to do, not just at the beginning of some work with somebody that you have the privilege to work with, but also throughout the session. That to take time to talk about, while we're on this platform that we're not used to being on, that we can still find ways to connect with ourselves and connect with the person with us, but maybe we need to bring a little more attention to it. And that this idea of we don't have to keep our eyes looking right at that computer the whole time. That we don't have to keep our eyes not only looking at the computer, but trying to get eye contact with the person that we get to work with. That we might explicitly name that what will be really helpful is to pay attention to how long can I actually look at this computer? How long can I look at the person I get to work with? And then when do I need to switch? And I'm still here with you while I shift my attention. But I just need to honor my own rhythm of being able to look at this platform and then being able to look away. And I'm still here in relationship with you. This isn't me leaving you. I've had over the last couple of weeks, I've had the opportunity to, and Glinda, you might have been doing some of this as well, but the opportunity to talk with some of our training teams around the world. And one of the things that I've been hearing a lot is two things. One is how tired people are in working in this new way, of trying to form connection in this new way. And also this sense of feeling as though some of the skills that they have when we're in person, they don't necessarily have access to. And I think one of the skills that I'd really like to name that I do think we have access to, even over this platform, is noticing resonance. Is that, you know, certainly when we think about somatic experiencing, and in somatic experiencing, we're tracking the nervous system. And in tracking the nervous system, we're paying attention. We want to support by attunement and co-regulation, but also by watching the nervous system through observation skills, through what our client is telling us that's happening in their nervous system, but also in resonance. Mm-hmm. And some of our observation skills are kind of limited right now. Maybe, you know, we can't see the whole person's being like we can when we're in person. And so that might mean that we're asking people to do a little more self-report. But I also think it really asks of us to trust and explore this possibility that even though we're in different parts of the world, or different parts of the country, that we can still notice resonance. And while you're, yeah, go ahead.
I just had an idea of possibly having folks maybe reading my system, and I might exaggerate it a little bit, and maybe having you read what you're seeing. I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, that's great. So what is that again? So say it for me again.
Well, I was just feeling in myself. I was just aware that the breath wasn't moving through my shoulders, and I thought, oh, this might be a nice moment to kind of get a sense for everybody out there who has, you know, maybe you're practicing your tracking in the wild, tracking online skills. Maybe this might be a time to just notice my body as an example, and then Linda can track with me as I connect to a resource, you know, because right now I was just noticing my shoulders were a little bit less, there was less movement there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I wonder what happens just when you bring attention to noticing that.
Yeah, so I just noticed that a little bit more breath wave came through, and I felt a little bit more of return there. And I'm more aware of my back body, which is a big resource for me. If I feel into my back body, my kidneys, it tends to be a place where I relax a little more.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I'm curious if any of that shows up for you, Linda, or anybody else out there, what you're noticing in my system as I'm describing this. I'm also aware of my feet a little bit more, which of course you can't see, but in this online format, we're also being, you know, asking for a little bit more self-report, especially for the lower body, which we may not see. Yeah. So I'm just noticing my feet. I'm noticing another breath wave coming through.
Mm.
And I'm also a little bit more taking in like the the whole of the room, including the screen, but I'm aware more peripherally right now. Yeah.
And I'm noticing that as you do that, I'm breathing a little deeper too. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and so that's that resonance thing that Linda's talking about. So when we see another system coming into more coherence or more of a sense of the breath moving in the body more easily, a little bit more ease in the system, often that can help our own systems. And then it works the other way, right? So
Lindy and Linda, this is
Yeah.
me. I'm just chiming in for a minute because I'm not going to pose a question to bring anybody else online, but I wanted to let you know, because Lindy, you'd asked what were people noticing?
Yeah.
The chat, Sally says she just noticed that Glindy is left-handed. And then Candace noticed that she saw tension in the jaw and a little bit of jerking. Denise said, my shoulders relaxed and moved a little bit more, relaxed and moved as yours did.
Lovely.
And Paula said, maybe take a look at the inside surface of the sternum. Candace is talking about noticing more rapid fluttering of the eyes. Maureen says your face looks softer. So wow, we've got a rock star list of SCPs who are really modeling for the rest of us how to observe you. So this is a fun question. And I'm going to go back on mute here and let you guys comment about that. But I want to say to people who are starting to chime in, go ahead and put in questions because we're about to queue up questions for Glindy and Nickerson and bring you on screen with them. And maybe y'all can observe and sort things out together. I previously mentioned upvoting, and some people have asked how to do that. If you see a little thumbs up on somebody's question, that's how you upvote it, and it will send it more to the top of the list, okay? So go ahead and be posting your questions. Some are already coming in, guys, so I'm gonna give you one in just a couple minutes, okay?
awesome.
Yeah. What awesome tracking skills.
Yeah, I feel really seen by you all. Thank you so much.
Yeah. A
It's
combination
like held by a big, large global community.
Yeah. You just got like a mini session.
Yeah, it's like a, resonance times several hundred.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The power of this kind of community connecting that we're doing.
So there was part of what seemed to help that was your self-report. You were offering a little more self-report about what you were noticing in your somatic self. And then the really great tracking skills, the observation skills, and some resonance skills I heard there as well.
Yeah. And it's part of the thing that feels good is the being seen and heard and having someone attend to us in that way where we're really listening with our whole bodies. And part of what's very helpful to help us be able to listen with our whole bodies is that sense of listening in to ourselves first, so that we have this we tune our own instrument so that we can be able to be there for someone else. So if we are listening for ourselves, sometimes people can just, if people want to play around with just placing the hand at the heart, and just notice if you feel, you may feel your heart beat. You may feel just warmth. You may be aware of pressure there. It's just a place that can be a soothing place of self-touch, but also a place of just really checking in with the support of the hand. Just notice what happens for you, and I'll just tell you what I'm noticing. As I feel that, I feel like I actually come a little bit more out of my head and more into my body when I do that. And I'm also aware of just a rhythm, that rhythm of my heartbeat. So just notice what you're aware of in your own self, and you can share that through the Q&A there, which it's really exciting to hear what people are saying and reporting and tracking. It's really fun also to do this with Linda.
Well, Glindy, that seems like a perfect time to bring in our next question. What do you think? Are you guys ready to bring someone on screen? So I am going to look for Becky Hughes asked a question that is getting upvoted quickly. So all of you participants, as well as Becky, are about to see. Becky, I've just unmuted you, and I'd like to bring you on screen with Glindy and Linda. Are you okay with us doing that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay, it's going to take a moment and bring you on screen, and you're coming on over. Okay, here's Becky. We're unmuting her. She's starting up her video. There we go. Uh-oh, Becky, maybe you can turn your screen the other direction. There we go.
Becky.
Ask your question.
Hello. My question is, I'm a student, I'm studying a master's in integrative counselling, so I'm a bit of a novice compared to all you guys, so it might seem a really silly question.
Great question.
Is really about body work, working with the body, because when you're working on the telephone, because the clients that I have, we aren't able to use video conferencing, so we use telephone counselling. But what tends to happen, especially with me, is that a lot of I tend to work more with the head rather than the heart because of the mode of communication. So I was just wondering if you had any ideas or tips or guidance on that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Would that be all right for me to jump in?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So we don't need to have the video to join with someone and be connected with someone. It helps in terms of tracking, and it can help in terms of that feeling of connection. But what we often will be relying on more is the tone of our voice and that kind of rhythm in our voice, and how that communicates our own state, which can be very stabilizing for another person. That's number one. And then the other thing that I really want to emphasize is that when we're connecting with someone, we can, on the phone, we can ask them to practice doing some self-report of what they're aware of, maybe neutral sensations, positive sensations, to get them limbered up for a little interoception, to be able to give them a sense of connecting with the body, because it's such a great baseline for support. You can lead them through exercises like the one that Linda just did.
Yeah, I thought that. Yes.
Yeah, wasn't that great? And you can do that without having the visual. But it's just so important, and as we do that, what the pacing is of our voice. We're not being hypnotic. So we have energy, but we have a certain kind of rhythm, and that's actually part of the holding environment that we're creating.
Yeah, okay, that's great.
I'm wondering if Linda had something to add to that?
I would just add, I'm going to go back to this resonance piece, because I think, again, sometimes when we're on the phone, now not only can I not see you, I'm also not with you in the same physical space. But I think even on the phone, we can still notice the resonance. And what I mean specifically by that is, you might be having that phone conversation with someone, and all of a sudden your heart starts to beat a little faster. Or all of a sudden you notice yourself taking a deeper breath. Or maybe all of a sudden you have this thought that you're really curious for some reason about their feet. Or you get really curious about what's happening in their tummy. And that can be resonance. And I think what that asks of us is to trust when those things emerge, those different felt sense pieces we might have, or different thoughts, that we trust that that might be part of our attuning to the person we're working with, our joining with them. And we're starting to be able to feel what's happening in their nervous system, and how to, with curiosity, or on the phone with, I wonder what if anything, you might be noticing your feet right now. Or I wonder right now if you're noticing anything about your breath. And it's not, I'm not going to assume that it's accurate, but
Yeah.
I want to learn to trust the resonance that we get from our connection with the person, even when we're not in the same room.
Okay.
So there's this piece of trusting that, and then being willing to take the risk and offer it as, I wonder if this is something that's happening. And that can be really helpful, especially for people who are our clients who are first learning how to pay attention to their physiology, to their somatic self. Because they may not be used to bringing their attention to noticing their body. So it's like we're trying to find all the creative ways we can to bring attention to it.
Great.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. It's a great question. I'm sure there's a lot of folks out there that are just doing telephone. So that's really, it's really encouraging, isn't it, to know that we can do this and can really affect other people's nervous systems through this.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
That's great.
I think it just asks of us to not limit ourselves. You know, sometimes our thoughts, we limit ourselves by what we tell ourselves about, oh, I'm not with them, or I can't see them, so I won't be able to notice the things. And we can still notice things.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
It's still possible.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much for being our first guest online with us today. I'm going to stop your video now.
Okay,
We're going to go ahead and create you as a participant again. And great, guys. So we're still learning this format. Everyone online with us is learning the format. I'm going to interrupt a minute because people have a lot of questions about technical difficulties that are happening. I just really want to apologize for that. Everyone, more than 50% of the people who signed up have not been able to get on, and we have emails going like crazy throughout the Institute right now. And we've clarified that it's a Zoom error, probably with their security issues recently. They put in a password, took off a password, did something with the link. So if some of you guys are finding things like that, we're really working hard to get that sorted. And if you have friends who are contacting you, which I see a few people in the chat saying, you can look out for any posts in the chat that are put out there by Laura or Rebecca. They are getting answers out there as soon as we get them. So I'm very sorry for that. We're all figuring out these modes as we go. And I guess it's a truism for doing any kind of telehealth, isn't it? Phone, video, anyway, how do we roll with that and still just be present? So you guys are modeling it really well, and we're doing our best here. That said, also, if you're not able to access this or other weeks, there will be video recordings available on traumahealing.org/conversations. Each week is recorded if you didn't see last week. But I hope you're already starting to get that being here together and answering each other's questions together is what's going to make this more fun. So the next question, though, is someone who does not want to be seen on video. So I'm going to have you guys share it and then get another one to you or respond to it. But Denise Springer asked if I could read it for her.
Great.
Okay.
And thanks for the technical update.
Yeah. Oh, sorry for that, everyone.
All good. It's all good.
Reality.
Yeah.
Okay, so Denise says, would you comment on working with traumatic loss for someone with complex developmental trauma addressed through years-long SE touch work that's now virtual? So it sounds like she's working with someone with complex developmental trauma. She's been doing touch work, and now it's going virtual. How would you handle something like that?
Can I ask for so is the comment about, can you continue to do some touch work then on or maybe I'll speak to that. How's
Good
that? I'll start with that.
Yeah, see, I can just read it word for word. Would you comment on working with traumatic loss? Okay, that's the key. The traumatic loss for someone with complex developmental trauma that's been addressed through years-long SE touch work and is now virtual.
Great question.
Hard,
Yeah.
hard, good content. A lot of people are interested.
Want to start off, Linda?
Did you ask me if I'd like to start out? Sorry. Yeah, I will. Sure. That's such a good question. And I wish we had all day to talk about that because there's lots of good stuff in that question. Oh, where to start? Well, I think the theme of loss is really significant today. So it's a good it's a good piece for all of us to have to think about. Well, and I'm sure you are thinking about it and experiencing it. And then that combined with the loss being complicated by early complex trauma, and then everything switching as it is. And I guess one of the things that I want to speak to is this idea of, I think sometimes when we get to work with people that have had all of that in their lives, that sometimes we can fall into this place of thinking we need to have really complex interventions and something new or fancy. And I'm a big fan of the more complex the situation is, like the situation we're in today, it really actually calls upon us to come back to the basics of somatic experiencing, some of the real, and it sounds, I'm going to use the word simple, but it's not simple at all. But it's some of the basics of SE that I think of in these situations, including, and we've talked about this a little bit, the importance of our own, by our, I mean us as the practitioner, our regulation, so that we can offer the possibility of co-regulation. And it's easy when we're working with people that are in these heightened situations for us to fall into that heightened nervous system activation as well. So this piece of us remembering to step into and stay connected with ourselves and to regulate and to continue to orient, but also this principle of titration. And that principle of titration that we spend so much time in the SE classroom exploring, it sounds simple and yet it's so complicated, because what we're trying to figure out with titration is what's the right amount? What's the right amount of work? What's the right amount of stimulation? What's the right amount of being present? What's the right amount of connection and attunement that's actually helpful for the person we're working with? So I think that's a really important piece to hold in your awareness of, is this concept of titration. And the world's pretty overstimulated right now. The whole world is overstimulated right now. And then when we have many people who have these histories that are so complicated and challenging, that the idea of us finding the right little dose, the right amount of connection, the right amount of stabilization, the right amount of less charge in their system is really important. And we might muck around with that. We might make mistakes in it as we try to figure it out. But the principle of titration, I think, is a big one. And I'll just say one last thing, Glindy, and then I'll bet you have something you might want to add. But I'm a big fan that we can still continue to do touch work. Of course, it's different, but I'm a big fan that we can do touch work over these different platforms. And that can come in many forms. And it might come in the form of, and Glindy just did that experience with all of you, about maybe inviting the person we're working with to do a little self-touch. Self-touch on the chest, or maybe self-touch on the head, the front of the head and the brainstem. And that we, to believe in the impact of that. I find sometimes that when we invite people to do touch work on this platform, we can kind of think, oh, it's not going to have any influence, I'm not there. So we as the practitioner, rush too quickly through it. So for us to slow down ourselves as the practitioner and actually give the person we're working with the time to have the experience of that touch. And then I will often say to people, along with if they're willing to do a little touch work, then I'll often say, so I wonder if this is okay with you, while you make contact, maybe with your brainstem, the back of your head, how would it be if I, as your practitioner, lend my attention and I put my attention there as well? Would that be okay if we do that? And if the person that I'm working with says yes, then I will simply bring my attention over to the area where the touch contact is happening. And then to be curious about what happens. And it's amazing how often people can feel that. They can feel that support, kind of like how Glindy could feel the support at the beginning of this, when she could feel all of your support in how you observed and saw and witnessed her. But even with touch, I'm going to go back to that idea of titration. We want to be mindful of both with the touch and the use of our attention, that we're not doing too much, because there's a place where it might be just the right amount, and there's a place where we might cause them to go into increased levels of activation instead of stabilization.
Thank you
Lindy?
so much, Linda. I love what you're saying about presence and being in the resonance with folks, and just the power of attention and intention. When we can place our attention somewhere to support someone, it can be a really amazing and very necessary resource, especially when there's early developmental trauma and when there's traumatic loss. Both of these things really require a feeling of being held and developing that sense of I've got you, I'm here for you. And it can be so much more easily felt for some of us, or maybe all of us, when we get the sense that someone's really has that attention to actually be there in a physical holding capacity with us. And I just also want to reiterate, like, that presence itself is very powerful. And while we may have beliefs about that not being as powerful when we're not in person, I think what we're really hoping to bring across to everyone is that there is something of you that's communicating as a practitioner that is beyond the medium. And the way that I know that as a phenomenologist, right, as a person who's really, I'm true to what experiences, and I honor what people's experiences in the moment, rather than some idea of is this true or is this not true? If it's an experience happening for the person, and if there's an experience happening for me, how great is that we can share that? And even if we have different experiences, if I'm reaching out to someone out there and saying, how would you like to have me hold space for you? And they say on the outer upper arms. We did this a little bit last week. And I might be reporting from the outside saying, I'm aware of a little bit more heat on one side. I'm curious what you're aware of. And for them, they may be saying, you know what? I'm not really feeling anything there. Could you maybe try a different area? So that there's a sense of option and choice, which is also really great with anyone, but especially if you have early developmental trauma where your needs may not have been considered. And so playing within the medium, whatever we're working with, within that holding container, we're doing the same things that we would in our normal practices, where we're really helping give people choice, because that's inherently a resource. And I just saw Ami pop on again. Hi there.
Hi, Ami.
That was a wonderful answer to the question, and a lot of people are chiming in like, thank you, you've just answered a bunch of my questions with that question. So really great. Great stuff here. I hope y'all are getting the sense of the conversant part of this. I do see that you guys have the ability to raise your hands. And so my next two questions are tied for eight thumbs up. So let me put out there, can you go ahead and raise your hand using the raise your hand feature if you are currently an SE student. Let's hear from a current SE student so we can stay connected to our students whose courses may have been postponed while we're in this. And if I'll see that your hand is raised as a student, particularly if you're Jenny Haro or Marsha Webster, because I think you're next on my list. Okay, it looks like Jenny is a student. We're gonna go ahead and bring Jenny on. Jenny, I have you unmuted. If you unmute on your side, are you willing to come on the screen and ask your question?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. And you sound a little bit quiet over there. So as I'm transferring you over, maybe check into your volume as well. Should come over any
Great
second.
symbol.
And you can go ahead and I'm going to track your hands. See who's there. There's Jenny.
Hey.
Hi, Jenny.
Go ahead and ask your question. Oh, I know Jenny. Jenny from Northern California. Jenny's a disaster worker, guys. I actually know her from a whole other realm. The IHAN, the Integrative Healers Action Network, working in the fires in paradise. Okay, this is going to be a great question. I'll get out of the way and let y'all chat.
Thanks, Ami.
Thank you. My question is about something that came up with our team yesterday is noticing that the possibility of the long-term implications on what's shifting in our collective neurobiology right now of these new neural pathways that are forming when we're out shopping and seeing people in physical proximity and feeling this fear come up. And so just curious what suggestions you have for SE principles that we can use and can share with others as these new neural pathways are forming of, oh, being close to someone physically is not safe. And when the physical quarantine does lift, how can we disrupt this? How can we use the SE principles now to create safety and security, even in this time of not feeling safe to be close to others?
Yeah,
I'd love to jump in. Is that okay, Linda?
of course, yeah.
Great. Yeah, I think this is a great question. And I've heard this voice in the media quite a bit as well. Like what happens, once this is lifted, when you go towards an elevator, how are you going to feel about pressing that button? Because we've now coupled something, we've connected proximity of other people, possibly with fear. And there's actually, that's a good survival thing for the present moment. It is a self-protective response. That physical proximity right now is not ideal. And in fact, it can be dangerous, which is something that we've kind of conditioned ourselves into by this point to have that kind of response. But this is a temporary thing and we don't want this to continue. So how do we work with nervous systems? And the great thing about SE is that we can work with that and track that activation. If we're working with somebody in particular, or you're also in group work, it sounds like you may be doing some group work. You were talking about a team. And how do we help ourselves just be able to track that and normalize that? Like, of course, I'm noticing that. I had a client the other day that was saying that she was feeling really tense in the grocery stores and was shooting daggers at people, and she didn't want to, but it was just, stay away, stay away. And that is a self-protective response that is part of how we're going to get through this, but then we need to let that go. And part of how we would be able to let that go is to let ourselves feel the response rather than suppressing it or saying, well, that's silly, I shouldn't be doing that. Why am I, that's the thought process is saying, I shouldn't be doing that, but the body may still be having that response. So can we get in touch with what those sensations are like, or the thoughts that go along with it? But I would encourage people to feel into the sensations in particular of what that self-protection is like. Oh, I feel a tension here and I feel my jaw getting tighter. Right. And is that all right? I would invite someone to just say, to just be with that. Is that all right to be with that right now? Is it okay to notice that? And often when we notice something, it starts to shift on its own because it just needs to be experienced to hit a certain threshold and then deactivate. What we say in somatic experiencing is that there can be a charge, and when we're with it, often it'll shift on its own as part of this pendulatory process where we have a little bit of self-protection coming up, which is this arousal energy. And then as we're with it, sometimes that can shift on its own, and then there's a settling. And that generally helps to create an overall autonomic nervous system reset as we allow ourselves to do that. Now, sometimes it doesn't shift on its own, and then we might need to have a little help. And earlier, Linda was giving this example of shifting between our attention between two things, between the environment and what's happening inside. But we can also shift our attention between those sensations that are more alarming and then something that feels a little bit more easy to be with, which could be my nice plant, underappreciated plant in the room. It could also be a part in the body that's already been established as an easy place to be with, like the feet, or as I was saying, like my back body feels really relaxed to connect into, and then going back and forth between the two. And and the most important piece of that is to really give a little time for the client or the group you're working with to report that and put it into words, allow themselves to be aware and spend time savoring that shift. Because there's often a shift when we allow ourselves to have the experience that we're often putting aside. It's like, no, I can't do that. I shouldn't be having that experience. Well, let's have the experience, but in a way where we're actually holding space for someone to have a different experience. But it starts with being able to allow what's really present in the moment. I'm wondering what you'd like to add, if anything, Linda.
Yeah. Just, is it okay if I briefly say something, Ami, or?
Yeah, it's 100% okay. I'm out. Please go ahead.
I'm really appreciating your question too, and because I've actually been thinking about that as well. It's like, what's going to be the impact of this? Because I think what your team's asking, and I think partially what Lindy was addressing, was coupling dynamics. And when there's, as we know, when there's a threat, and there's a threat right now, that, our physiology can link together different elements that were happening at the same time of the event, or of the scary event, the threat. And so right now, what's being linked together is people being dangerous. People might have the threat, but it's really hard to know. It's this invisible thing. So in my reflecting on it, one of the things that I've been thinking about around that is, we're really attuned, we're wired to notice the survival states of the people around us. So right now, when we go into a grocery store, I was in a grocery store yesterday, and I was noticing, you can feel there's just this heightened sense of threat. And it's really natural we're going to feel that right now. And we should feel that. So there, to me, there's a little bit of, and I think this is part of what Glindy was saying, is it's like, this is healthy to notice that there's a heightened sense of threat within our communities and our loved ones and with our clients. And to acknowledge that, and this is part of what Glindy was saying too, but to acknowledge it, but to see it as health, to notice when there's threat. And so the next piece to my thoughts around that is that, so I started to wonder when things start to shift again, when the threat of this virus starts to decrease, and we then, a healthy nervous system then is going to be able to also feel that the threat response is going to go down a little bit. And so it's this piece of trying to trust the capacity of our nervous system and the health in all of our nervous systems that right now we can feel this increased threat, and when it starts to shift, we might notice that too. And that's part of what I'll be, inviting people that I work with to bring their attention to, is when things start to shift. And even the moments where things are shifting now. Like yesterday when I was in the grocery store, I did a grocery run for my dad and my daughter. I had the gloves on, I was all ready. But even in walking through the shopping or the area that I mentioned a few minutes ago, I could feel the threat. But you know what else I was able to notice? Some people smiling. And I was purposely looking for that. And I was smiling back. Of course, with some of the people that had masks, I was trying to look at eyes a little more because I couldn't read the signal of their mouth. But it's so even when there's threat, like there is now, maybe we can guide ourselves and our people we get to work with to look for where there's less threat. Because even right now, there are pockets where there's less threat. And then there's heightened threat. And that's part of that fluidity we want to have and support ourselves to have. And I think that will hopefully help with us not putting people always as danger now. But it is something I think we'll have to work with too when this is over. But there's resiliency in our nervous system. There's health in our nervous system. We got to look for that too.
Yeah, thank you. Those are really helpful. And I think just bringing the awareness and inviting people to, like you said, to follow the pathways where there are openings of connection and and giving ourselves permission to be in this heightened space and to know that it's temporary. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Looking for those tiny little shifts. It might not be a huge shift, it might be very tiny. That little bit of shift is really helpful for a person to start get a little bit more resiliency in their system.
It is. Like in the grocery store yesterday, when I did have a few people smile back at me, it was just like, it felt so good. I could just feel my system go, woo, it's lovely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question, Annie, and thanks for all the good work you're doing out there.
Yes.
Truly. This is such a great question. I just have to back you up. That was really wonderful. A lot of people chimed in that they were loving these answers. People are chiming in that they're, doing things along with you at home. There's a lot of really fun commentary happening in the Q&A that I'll be able to share with Lindy and Linda after this, so they can be with you guys right now and not focused on that. But lots of kudos, lots of thank you, Jenny's, for this question. And I'm just going to acknowledge also as an SE student that fussing with this Zoom thing today is probably not something that many practitioners are writing in, oh, that happened this week when I had a one-on-one scheduled with a client and this password thing. And I was noticing that I love these conversations because I, as part of the SE community, want to be with you guys too. And I was getting really absorbed in the technology. And when you just started to say that, Linda, about looking for something, the smile, I started to enjoy the vines behind you. And I said, forget the Zoom thing for a minute. We can't figure it out. It seems like when people sign in the second time, they're getting through on the link. That's crazy, but that's how it is. So that's how it is right now. So I was like, well, if I'm just with what's so, and I was with your vines, with Jenny's smile taking in your guys' question, I literally settled back in my chair. I could feel warmth in my heart and my belly, and I just got to enjoy this session. So I think I can speak with everyone that we're all following along with you guys and really tracking this. Jenny, did that hit your question pretty good? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and send you back to the panel and get ready, or back to the attendees. Thank you so much for stepping out with that. And Marcia, I'm gonna get ready to queue you up in a moment if you're ready to join us with your question. A lot of people have been up voting it. And if folks out there are still wondering what I'm talking about when I say upvote it, there are questions in the Q&A. If you click Q&A at the bottom of your screen, you'll see people are writing in questions, and then they're hitting that little thumbs up sign, which is sending higher voted questions to the top of the line, so I'm able to sift through all the comments that are there. If there's a question you'd like to have answered in today's session, be sure to go ahead and do that, or go ahead and type your own questions in. And they also help us structure next week's session, so that's great. Last thing I'll say before we bring Marcia in is that we're about, we're a little bit more than halfway through our session, and we're so happy to be able to bring you free programming in this time. This kind of programming is very unlike what we've done in the past. We're really stepping out as the SE Institute to try and be first responders, secondary responders, right, with y'all, not just a training institute, but really responding to your needs, as you are all frontline responders right now, in a very, very real way. So if this programming is worthwhile to you, I feel like I sound like an NPR announcer right now. If this is real,
Sounds great.
in real time, could you please take out your cell phone right now? And I know we don't normally take out our cell phones when we're doing this, but it's so meaningful. I'm going to ask you to. Please take out your phone and send a text message to 26989. This is domestic United States only. If you're international, which many people are, there's someone who it's almost 2 o'clock in the morning Singapore on the line. Hi, sweetheart. What's the number again? It is 26989. Send a little message that says, in one word, no spaces, support SE. It will give you a link to donate. $5, $10, anything like that, even starts to send a message to the Institute that this programming is worthwhile for you, that gathering as a community like this is worthwhile. We'd love to do more. We'd love to do more with those of you working with different first responders. We'd love to do one just for body workers. I know it's a huge, confusing challenge right now, and that's a big part of our community. We all know that. So if it's worthwhile to you, please take a minute. 5, 10, 25 bucks, whatever is okay for you. We realize everyone's incomes are challenged right now, so no harm, no foul if you are not able to do that. International, go to traumahealing.org/donate. And we just really thank you for that. We'll track how many seem to come through from this session, and it'll help us know if we should continue doing these. Your feedback is so appreciated. So thanks for letting me yammer that. It's a little bit of fun during our free programming session. Now, Marcia's question got voted up even more. So, Marcia, I'm about to give you voice access so we can hear you right now. Are you all right with us bringing your video online?
Hi, Amy. I am, yes.
Hi, okay. Oh, and it's Ami. Hi, you're all seeing my name on screen. Hi, Ami. Nice to meet you. All right, Marcia, we're going to bring you over to the panel. She should pop up any moment.
This is really kind of incredible that we can do this.
Isn't it
really
fun?
It's really fun. Yeah.
We're going to keep figuring out how to bring more and more people in, and how maybe we can do exercises with a group of us at once. So keep coming back each week to see what's different. I'm going to duck out. Hi, Marcia.
Hi. Great. Hi, Glendy and Linda. So my heart is racing and my stomach's churning. It's hard to wait.
So is it okay to just slow down for a moment?
Yeah, probably it is.
Yeah. Give your heartbeat a chance. And,
yeah.
And it gives all of us a chance to slow down too. When you slow, it gives all of us a chance to slow down too.
Right.
So, yeah. Yeah.
So, well, just an observation about this format before I ask my question. I'm finding that, like, the thing just said I was promoted to a presenter. And some of the Zooms I've been doing have had like hundreds of people on these panels. You can like flick through during the meeting and see people's knee and their cat and their, whatever. So this feels much more like formal. It's interesting.
Oh.
And
so is that a good thing?
It's more activating for me right now.
Yeah.
And then earlier when I was just listening and watching, it was very relaxing because nobody even knew I was here. So, so for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, I appreciate
that coming on.
Yeah. I'm just noticing that beautiful plant behind you. Plants seem to be a theme of today.
Yeah. And there's a cat and a ball. Yeah.
Are you up in Vermont?
I'm in Vermont.
great. I know Marcia from a training that we were both
Oh,
in
Good to see
uh,
you.
Brownsville.
Yes. Yeah, we only got a little bit of snow this morning, so.
Oh, right. You're still getting
Um, so I'm going to look right at Glindy and ask my question here. I guess it's sort of a question, but it's also just something I'm noticing. There was an interview with Peter that I caught through the SE website where he really noted that the phrase social distancing is threatening to, us social beings. Just inherently, that term would be startling and alarming. And that, what we really need for safety right now is physical distancing and social connection. So I've been finding that really helpful as I watch the news and listen, and I've shared it with some of the people I work with, and they find it helpful. And until I typed in the question, I've been like, well, of course that's wise and true, and we'll never change that in the news or in the public discourse. But there's hundreds of us here, and maybe we can change it.
And do you mean changing the languaging and the way that that's put out and how that's affecting people to feel like we need to socially distance when that's not the case? We just need to physically distance. Mm-hmm. And is that your question?
So the question sort of comment is, as I try to find my way and, feel strong and capable and, relevant and able to take action in a crazy time. That's one of the things that helps me. And I think if there's any way to change the conversation beyond just me, that would be helpful to others. So I don't know if there's some movement, or I'm just brainstorming, and I guess just saying that that's something I want to keep talking to people about because it does seem to help.
Right. You mean in terms of how people are, how people can get more of a sense of connection through this online format, or in general, if they're on their own or around folks where they need some support on the outside to get social connection with physical distancing through the online format or whatever. I mean, I think the ventral vagal system is what we're really talking about, that sense of connection. And when we feel that sense of social engagement, it gives us these deep signals of safety in our bodies, which then help to optimally regulate our hearts, our lungs, which is really important for our immune system. And it gives us more of a sense of ease. One of the things that has been helpful for me is really allowing myself to take in other people's faces and their eyes when I am connecting online. So like I'm looking at you and I'm really, rather than just saying, oh yeah, she's just over there and she's small and, she's like 3 inches in diameter or whatever. It's, seeing you as a person and letting go of those kind of thoughts so that I can actually feel with you and to feel a fellow human being that I'm really connecting with right now. And part of how we do that, is, from our friend Stephen Porges, who's really helped us see a lot, the idea of that polyvagal theory that helps us know that there's a tremendous amount of shifts that can happen in our physiologies and our nervous system and our psychologies by attending to those signals of safety. And a lot of that also comes through the human face. So when I am, I'm seeing you nodding, I'm getting a sense of you being here and being so brave to show up and be with all of you. And that comes back and flows back to me. There's this flow back and forth that I experience when I allow myself to really fully engage with you, and that helps to feed my system. I think it's also true that sometimes it's helpful for folks to get a sense of a little bit more of a sense of you actually being there. Sometimes if we're on a lot, and there's a lot of people who are doing a ton of meetings at the moment, and it can make us feel like we're not really connected because we're just sitting too long and looking at a screen. So I'm not negating that part of it. And for me, one of the things that I've been doing is getting up, moving around, jogging in place, a little jumping jacks, or going out for a walk, connecting with my dog, Logan. Some of you know Logan out there. And you do, Marsha.
I do.
Linda. And the other thing that I've been doing a lot is just taking my drum. I mentioned it last week, but to really resonate with my own system. And I'm wondering if we could just pause. If I move my camera, my computer a little bit, and just a warning, it may not sound, I don't know if it's going to sound as strong as I'm going to hear it, but I want to just do this. Hold on. And it's just like listening to one's own heartbeat first. And this, you don't need a drum for this. You just need a cardboard box, actually. So
Would a table work?
a table can work, anything. You could just use and pitch a pen on a table or on a book. So I'm just going to start feeling into the rhythm of my own heart like we were doing earlier. And from there, and I can feel my heart is, it's not unrelaxed, but can you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm going to go a little faster and notice how that feels in your body. Now I'm going to go a little slower. So I just notice more breath. With this heartbeat rhythm. Now I'm going to go a little slower. And that's almost getting too slow for me, so I'm going to go a little faster. It's like tuning my own system through rhythm. But it's something you can also do together online, even though there could be sometimes delays or whatever when you're working with someone online. It's a way to resonate together. I've been doing like an online drum class, and it's been really fun. And it's just getting into rhythm with other people. This is great for kids as well because it helps them mobilize a little bit, right, through the arms to move the arms and, you know, frankly, to just, you know, hit something a little bit, get that sense of I can. Because there's a lot of tension that's for some folks that are being held in the arms right now and in our bodies, and it's a way to help open the gates of the wrists, the elbows, the shoulders, and help the energy from the heart to flow. When we feel all this energy moving towards mobilizing against a threat, we can use some of that energy in the form of actually just listening to our heartbeat and just giving our a sense of rhythm and finding our own optimal rhythm. Notice I wasn't choosing just the slowest heartbeat. I was feeling what was right for my system, and that could change at any moment. Yeah. So I was wondering, Linda, if you had anything you wanted to add?
I would just add this really little piece of the behaviors that until recently, there were behaviors that we associated with this is connection. And this is this behavior that this person's showing is a reflection of this person caring about me or having good intentions for me. And maybe that was an invitation to go to a coffee shop or go for a walk or watch a movie together. And those behaviors just aren't available today. And so we are looking for, and we're needing to get creative around being able to hear and see and even smell behaviors, new behaviors that say, this is somebody offering connection. It's different than what we're used to, but this is somebody offering connection. And it might be just a little moment of it, like smiling to a stranger in the grocery store, or telling somebody you'd like to meet them, but we're going to have to stand 10 feet apart. We can't stand close to convey connection. And in fact, today we need to hold our boundaries of space even more. But to have that boundary doesn't mean I don't care. Having that boundary means I care so much. And so I think that's the piece of trying to be explicit about the new behaviors today that mean I care, and the new behaviors today that mean I have good intentions in this interaction with you. And some of the behaviors I have to do, though, in the past might have meant I don't care. Like I can't come over to your place anymore. That might have sounded like in the past I don't care, but today it means I care. It's just not safe. So things are being flipped upside down. And that's part of what I think we're getting asked to be creative with and try to be flexible enough to hear that these new behaviors do mean I care. They didn't maybe in the past, but today they do. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi guys, you probably saw me chime in on the screen in this weird sort of invasive way that my little video pops up. Marsha, thank you so much for the presence you brought with your question and the sincerity of your own experience. I got a lot out of being with you all, responding in that way. And not only me, Deborah online likes seeing your cat in your space. People are chiming in the chat about how they feel about their political representatives using terms like physical distancing. So you've got some people, I would say, activated positively in alignment with you. One person's even posing, what if we all go on Facebook and ask our friends to consider shifting from social distancing to physical distancing with social connection? So you've got your question answered, and I think you also recruited some allies in this, which is exactly what we want to do as a community. And so I'm gonna unpromote you in the language of Zoom. Back to the attendee little tiny box. Yeah, that word drives me nuts too. So are you okay with that? Are we clear for this?
I understand, and that would be great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, guys, and I want to make present that this is getting so good. I'm enjoying it so much. I've finally settled in, and we're actually 6 minutes overtime right now, which is okay. We started a little late, and millions of people are chiming in about the technical difficulties they've had. Some people have started to drop off the line, but I just thought in the interest of stability, what do you say if we go for another 10 minutes? So like 15 minutes overtime. And do you guys have the space for that to go towards 1/4 the next hour? I'm leaving the hour out because we're in different time zones. Great. Then that said, would you like to move into some closing comments and thoughts, or would you like to try to answer one more question?
I'm flexible. Glendy, did you have a preference?
Well, I'd love to hear what another question that's out there.
It's fun,
Okay.
right? Once we start chatting, it gets really fun.
Yeah, it's great seeing people and hearing what their experiences. And also the upvoting helps us know how much this is important to many people. This question.
Yes. Okay. Well, so then it seems like the next person we're going to talk to is going to be Damien. And I just sent a little note to Damien that we're going to be chatting with you. Damien, would you be all right if we bring your video online to ask this question live? I have unmuted you.
It
But
still
you
looks
can
muted.
unmute yourself on your own end. Oh, there you go. Hi, Damien.
Hello.
Are you okay with us bringing your video online?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. And he should pop up any moment. Fun, unmute. Here comes the video.
Hello.
There we go. Hi, Damien. So, guys, we've got just a handful of minutes to try and get to this question, but a lot of people had some interest in it. Damien, thank you so much.
I wanted to ask, I'm a almost, I mean, I've done the second level of SE course in Prague, but I wanted to check with you, how do you work with the boundary exercise when you have no possibility to really be there physically with rope and, you know, all those exercises? So just that's the question what I've got.
Yeah.
You want to jump in?
Sure.
Sorry?
It's a great question. Because I think that the boundary exercises that we do in class and then in our therapy offices are so helpful right now, and they're really important in what's happening in the world right now, for people to have relationship with their own sense of boundaries. So I think there's lots of ways that you can get creative with still using them even though you're not in person. And so if I'm going to move around a little bit just to highlight it. So we might even say to somebody that we're working with, might say, you know, I'm gonna move my chair, which also means I'm going to be moving, and I'm going to move back, and we'll see what happens. I want to try and find a place where we're at the right distance. So here I go. I'm going to move my chair back, and as I'm moving my chair back, for you to just notice what might be happening inside. And you know, and maybe how is this distance between us now? What sensations come up? What thoughts show up? And sometimes people might say, I don't, like, it feels like you just left me. So it's like, okay, so I'm going to start to move my chair back. Yeah. And as I move my chair back, for you to notice what happens inside. And then I might, and you might say, well, I want you to keep coming close. And it's like, okay, I'm going to keep coming close, but we're still going to be doing this piece of, I want to be tracking your nervous system as the practitioner and tracking the resonance as I'm moving my chair back or forward, but also inviting you to track, so that it's still the same principle of, you could say, Linda, stop, like, stop, and you're getting too close, or keep going further back.
Okay.
So you still get to play with it. And maybe it's even going this way or going this way. So are getting really, really close. So you can still play with the distance piece. Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. I was just wondering, how can I manage, you know, when I'm not there, how can I do it? But that's really great. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do we still, I mean, can we still use a rope? I mean, I can ask my client to really use the rope and see, you know, how does it work, you know, on the,
absolutely.
On the stations.
I see Glindy nodding her head. I'll let her jump in here, but.
Yeah, I was just looking around like, where's my rope? And because you can also use other things like scarves, you know, sheets, you know, they could just wind them up a little bit and then use them, anything that they can find. Mm-hmm. And you can also, and I'm just going to play with this and just see how this is. And part of the reason I'm doing this is so that I'm hoping people might experiment a little bit at home as well. So if I'm going to move this over here, and I'll be right back. I'm just grabbing a couple of scarves. I haven't left you. So, helping a client get comfortable. So you see I'm kind of showing this on the ground of where this is. And some folks may be comfortable with this and some folks may not be. So I'm going further away, and then you can be with them as they place their scarves or their rope. I don't know how much you can see that, right? Yeah. And so we might need to play around with that a little bit more, but the idea is really giving them the time and the space to place the rope, place those boundaries. And so that it's a sensory motor engagement that's happening online where you're saying, oh yeah, great. And you may not see everything, but it gives a sense of joining while they're finding that. It's like, oh, I see that you're doing that. You're putting a boundary in the front. How far away is that from your body right now? Well, it's a couple of feet. How about over to your left side? Oh, that's actually closer in. I feel more guarded over here. It's like, oh, great. So you're really getting a sense of that. I wonder whether we might want to start over there and just track a little bit. So that part of it isn't just seeing everything. It's part of it's joining in the activity with them and for them to feel a little freedom to actually engage a little bit with their own bodies in that way. And so you may have to encourage people to play around just like I did. I didn't know how that was going to work. And it wasn't, you couldn't see everything, right? But
yeah,
we might play with that and tweak it more, and pushing that the monitor back and forward gives people also a little bit more sense of social engagement with you as well. It's like, because we're doing something together. So I'd really encourage you to play around with that, and I'd love to hear how it goes.
Great, thank you. Fantastic.
Yeah, you can email me to hear how everybody's boundary exercise experiments go online.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
That was a really great question, Damien. It's like so inspiring to anyone who's not yet in SE programming, because now they're like, what's that cool exercise and how can I do it with clients? So I feel like you're a plant, but more than a plant. It's so wonderful to be with you. Are you in Europe right now?
Sorry?
Are you in Europe right now?
In what?
You're in Europe? You said you took the program in Prague?
Yeah. I'm gonna, I finished my 4th module, so I have 2 more modules to go. Yeah.
It's the middle of the night where you are, and you're choosing to be here with us.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can everyone on the line like just get that? Damien, wow, thank you.
Really
and I know
so cool.
There's people from all over the world with us who are finding this meaningful, and I find it meaningful that you want to be here so much. It's wonderful. Thank you. I'm gonna transition you back to the attendee section as we wrap up. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Guys, wow. Esteemed professors of SE. Thank you. This has been a phenomenal, really great session. The chat has been just alive with everybody chiming in what they could see, what they could feel. People have been greeting each other in this one. There's been a lot of connection and community. So we opened it up from last week to let people chat with each other in that chat. So each week we're going to modify a little bit, guys, so we can keep improving this. I'd like to see if there's a way we might bring, like Marsha mentioned, a handful of people on screen at the same time, maybe to do an exercise together. Might go horribly wrong. It might be awesome. Hard to say, but let's experiment. And that's this time opens up. And both Glindy and Linda were willing to experiment in this format today. And I just thank you guys so much. And I also want to give a very strong thank you to everyone at the SE Trauma Institute out of Boulder, working from home, wherever the whole team is. They've really been secondary responders working around the clock to try and get these programs out to y'all. So thanks to Marv Tuttle, our executive director, who's trying to rally in all the options that are coming our way these days and help align us to be really powerful and effective rather than ineffective or helpless and traumatized in these times. So thanks to Marv, and a huge thank you to Dr. Peter Levine for giving us this modality. I think we're all finding our lives in it. I certainly am. And and we know what a moving contribution he's made to life. We won't be able to talk about psychology much longer without being able to refer to the body at the same time, will we? We're all starting to really get that. And we're riding that wave together. So magnificent, right? Thank you for being here. In closing, membership, I wanted to say something. If you can be an SE member, even if you're not a student. You could be a student, a practitioner, or inquiring, and there's a directory of SEP practitioners who can indicate that they're available for telehealth. So take a look on our website and cruise around and look at the different options for membership and see if that's an interesting thing for you as well. Rebecca, our membership director, has been working tirelessly behind the scenes today, trying to work out all the technical glitches. Videos of this are available on traumahealing.org/conversations. You can come back and visit this. You can see our conversation with Dave Berger last week. Next week, we will be with Joshua, and the title for the session will soon be released. So I hope you'll join us for next week's session. Go ahead and register. If you run into this tech glitch again, people who signed in twice seem to get in. I don't know what that is. Apologize in advance if we hit that again. Try not to. Glindy, Linda, is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
I would. And Glindy, you might too. It's just a simple little thing. And it actually comes from my dad. But the other day when we were chatting, he said, we're in an extraordinary time where we have the opportunity to be kind. And it just really touched me. And in that moment, he was talking about us being kind to others who are maybe in more difficult circumstances than we are. And our simple things of just saying hi to people, but to be kind both to the people in our community and around the world. But I think it also applies to being kind to ourselves. And so that in the being kind to ourselves, we can extend that branch of kindness out to others. So kindness to ourselves and others. That's what I would just like to close with.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. And I really just wanted to, it's so great to have you, to do this with you, Linda, because I know when I first was talking about this with Ami and doing this series, you came into my mind because we did a session a few years ago in which you were tracking me online, and you create such a beautiful presence in the way that you do that in your holding capacity that really communicated to me and was an inspiration for me. So I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on and bringing that to all of us so everybody can experience that wise holding capacity. And I just want to also just thank everybody out there for being willing to try something new. If this is a new medium for you, if you're trying out like Damien is trying out doing boundary work online, let yourself enjoy this. And within the context of the work that you're doing with your client, if something feels right and this feels like a little place to expand in how you're working together, try something out, try something new. And I really appreciate that you're out there holding space for people right now, because we really need that, and we need that engagement. So thank you so very much. And I also want to just thank you, Ami, because you're just such a ebullient, warm, and super capable presence to have here with all of your experience with disaster response and just yourself as a human being.
It's been fun.
Amazing. It's been really fun. Thank you so
So,
much. Go ahead.
do we have time for a VOO? Like that we could all do a little VOO sound together?
Wait. We still have 200 people on the line. So 200 people have said, you guys are way past time, but I don't care. I still want to hang out. So I have time. And anybody else needs to drop out, you guys can go. But Linda wants to do something that's a real fundamental practice. When in doubt, VOO it out, I think is where we're at right now. So we could all do that together and imagine that there's 200 people around the world doing this together. I dig it.
Isn't that fun to just imagine 200 people around the world doing it? It's really cool. So just letting yourselves get comfy in your chair or whatever you might be on, sitting on or lying on. And then, you know, the piece with the VU, I think that's always important is to stay in connection with your rhythm. So I'll start the VU, but feel free to start when you're ready to start. And feel free to stop when you're ready to stop, not when I necessarily stop or, oh.
This is so cool. Interruption. Raise your hand if you're okay with me bringing your video online while we're doing this. So we're gonna keep hearing Linda talking. Raise your hand. I'm gonna see how many of y'all I can bring on if you want. Don't raise your hand if you don't want to come on. I'm just gonna convert you right over. Oh, they're all popping on. You guys, so cool. All right, let's go ahead and see how this goes. I don't know if this is gonna work.
I'll let you pop everyone up before we start. This is fun.
You'll see when you get promoted to panelist, it'll ask you to like start your video and unmute yourself. This is really fun.
Oh, look at this. This is great.
It seems like everyone's coming on muted.
Deborah, Nola.
But we're gonna need your.
Maureen.
Oh my gosh, there's so many popping up so fast.
Oh, great. I see people I know.
I love this community so much. There are people in this community just blows me away.
Oh, it's so great.
All
Hello,
these
everyone. It's really cool to see your faces. Oh my goodness.
Okay, the only thing I know about trying to do this is somebody might feel activated right now being like, how come I'm not getting on yet? I don't blame you. I think I need 10 people with me trying to click all these.
Wow, amazing.
Oh,
I know.
I have my glasses on so I can see
live. So I'm so happy to see you, Colette, out there.
Oh my goodness.
It must be nice. Do you all see each other's faces too?
Yes.
And I think you guys can unmute yourselves. Once you're on the screen, you can unmute yourselves. Might get a little chatty here for a minute. But
Well, this is so exciting.
Not doing it in any particular order too. If anyone's wondering about that, I'm really just having fun here.
Hi, Izzy.
40 more people.
So great.
Nicole's
great.
Oh, that's nice. Modeling.
My heart's definitely warming. Got more life energy flowing through me, seeing all of you. No! Yay! So great. Oh, this was such a good idea.
Somebody, I just accidentally lowered your hand. I don't know who that was because I hit it so fast. So if your hand was up and it got lowered, that was unintentional. Go ahead and raise it again. We almost got everybody, guys. Everybody who wanted to come on. And there's a lot of people with us on the phone. So phone, I want you to see right now, we have many, many people popping up on our screen. I don't know how, I think different computer systems can see more people at once. So like Mac versus Windows, some of you can see 25, some can see 9.
And I'm scrolling, so if you guys want to see more people, you just hit, like it says, like 1 out of 3, and you just turn on the right side of your screen. You can.
Oh my goodness! This is just best.
Yeah. Okay.
So fabulous to see you all.
Okay.
Where is Linda? You're in Victoria, or Glindy's in Victoria?
I'm in Victoria.
You're in Victoria, and Glindy, you are?
I'm in Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, nice.
Okay, guys. Oh gosh, 21 more hands just went up.
Wow.
I wonder
Oh,
if we should be doing the activity while I'm bringing everyone on, or how you?
yeah, maybe we can start. I feel like dancing now instead of booing. But
Somebody dance. Anybody? You didn't know you were coming on screen to dance, did you?
So great to see you all.
We did some relief in the Bahamas where we brought in a bunch of therapeutic practitioners to help resolve the mental health issues in the Bahamas after Dorian. And a lot of the mental health practitioners were kind of fumbling around thinking, this is a whole new context. I don't know what to do here. Now, they weren't SEPs and they weren't SE trained. Let me just make that known. So they were trying to figure out what to do. At one point, one of the nurses we were working with, who was a Miami cheerleader, just sat down next to this girl who was in grief and comatose and started bumping her hip and dancing with her. And in 5 minutes, a house full of people who had been crying and lamenting and mourning were out in the backyard dancing together. Like over 15 people of 3 different families who had just faced tremendous loss of life. So yeah, when in doubt, dance it out too. Sorry, that's me rambling while I'm trying to get all these hands.
All right.
Yeah.
We need to go.
Oh, it's way better seeing all of you. Oh,
Yeah.
so
Really cool.
so great to see you all. Oh. All right. So with this, going back to this idea of wooing together from around the world. What I would, just in case you
I'm going to be
missed-
booing.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I was just mentioning to woo at your own rhythm. So I'm going to start. Join in whenever you have the impulse to join in, and then of course continue for as long as it's within your rhythm. It doesn't have to be how I'm doing it or how Glindy's doing it. Yeah. So here we go. And then if you're willing, we'll maybe do it one last time if it's within your rhythm. Oh, just noticing the sensations from the VOO and the sense of all of us being connected while we did that. We VOOed together.
Hands of people who don't know what the heck VOO is and was like, what am I doing and why? Anybody not heard of it? Because I know some of us, we've never heard of that. And you can hear some great talks by Peter about it. Certainly enroll in our program to learn more about it. You saw a bunch of people willing to jump in and do it real fast. I don't mean to break with that resonance either by like getting all informational about it, but wow.
5 minutes, okay?
All right. Well, that was so great to see your faces. We should have done this at the beginning. That would be my vote for next time. Let's do it at the beginning.
Yeah, this is so great to see everyone's faces, and I'm curious how you're all feeling now, having done full booing together. And I'm noticing that I'm scanning a little differently, like I'm seeing your faces, and I just kind of feel the apples of my cheeks a little bit more, kind of like that sense of connection. As we know, VOO really helps at the ventral vagal state to be able to be a bit more closely engaged. Are the reasons we're doing it? The main one. Yeah. And just to help all recognize a sense of safety and so great, all your faces. Thank you so much for participating with us.
Lots of love to you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's right.
Next close it down. I think we might start with this next time or something very similar. This has been
I
wonderful.
think so. This
Thanks
is
everybody.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Be well.
Don't want to get off.
Awesome.
Hi, Glendy.
That's a
Thank you.